Up next, we're going to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Wendy Okolo. She's an intelligent research engineer at NASA. I cannot wait to listen to all that she has to tell us. Can you put your hands together as we welcome Dr. Wendy Okolo?
Good morning. Okay, great. I think that's my cue to start. I can see my slides now. First of all, wow. Wow at this conference. An amazing job that has been done to put this together. The conference organizers, the speakers, the prolific speakers that went before me, I can only try to live up. So thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak to this group of very, very brilliant people. So before I get started, before I jump into the meat of what it is I want to share today, I want to spend some time briefly and kind of tell you who I am, right? I have these pictures of me I like to show, and on the top left, there's this baby picture of me. I put that there because people would always ask, did you always know that you wanted to be at NASA? How long have you known that you wanted to be an aerospace engineer at NASA? And in that top left picture, I was about 3 months old. I didn't know, obviously. But I'll tell you who knew that I was going to be an engineer. You want to guess? My parents, right? You know how Nigerian parents are. This is what you're going to study. This is what's going to be. But they lucked out because it worked out for me. So at that point, they already knew I was going to be an engineer. They didn't know it was going to be aerospace. They didn't know it was going to be NASA. So in the top right picture, I was old enough and telling people that I was going to be an engineer. I didn't really know what that was, but I was telling people that. And so there was, I wonder how old I was there, but I went to primary school at St. Mary's private school, Lagos Island, Bird Street, Ajele Junction, and from there, I went to Queen's College, Yaba, Lagos. Because I wanted to be an engineer, I obviously went into the sciences, right? I was a science student. Math, physics, chemistry, technical drawing, and further math. Ooh, further mathematics was so beautiful to me. I mean, imagine just starting with, a set of equations and playing and modifying and breaking it down in many different ways to arrive at the same answer. dy dx. I wonder if there are people that remember that are now on a different path. Some of you are lawyers, attorneys, but might have taken further math in secondary school, right? So I really liked that. I really enjoyed that. So when I graduated from QC at 15, I left the following year and came, that's the middle left picture, to Texas. I met up with my family there, and I say that because I had a great support system, right? It wasn't just me, going through this journey, this path. My father was there, and my big sisters were there. My mom and my brother were in Nigeria at the time. So I had support. And so when I got there, about a few days or weeks before I landed in Texas was when the fall semester started at the university. So I wasn't able to start that fall semester in engineering. In a lot of schools, your very introductory engineering classes are offered only once a year in the fall. So that's like the August timeframe. So I missed the August timeframe, and I would have had to wait another year. So I ended up just signing up to go to community college, which is like a diploma, right? So doing a temporary thing, taking the classes, my humanities classes, the things that make you people thrive, right? The literature, government, history, political science classes I had to take. So I started to take those there. And community college is interesting, right? The diploma. The people that typically attend are of very, very diverse backgrounds. You have people that have been out of school for 20 plus years. You have young people there, you have freshmen, just very, very diverse. So the pace is a little slower. So when I was in community colleges for about a semester or two, I was just everything, 100, 100, everything, 100, 100, doing very well. Coming with that Nigerian mindset, everything was so easy, so simple. So finished there, got through grades. I didn't even finish, just took the class that I needed to take. And then by the next fall, I was eligible to start my engineering classes because I was here. But going into university, coming from that community college mindset, is very different, right? It's a faster pace now. And in fact, I wasn't just in university doing aerospace engineering. I was there doing aerospace engineering, but as part of the honors college. So the honors college is a collection of the best and brightest and smartest people on campus, right? Of very varying disciplines. So they put us in this college like, oh yeah, you guys are really smart, because they were able to convert my grades from QC with my transcripts, my SSC results, and all of that. And I figured out that I had a very high GPA. So I was eligible for acceptance into the honors college. And so now I was with the best and the brightest and the smartest students, right? The first 2 weeks of university were no joke, because then it was like, oh, now I have to hustle, right? I have to work a little harder. And that easy 100, that was gone. So now I had to pick up, like work harder, pick up myself by my bootstraps and hustle, because when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Right, not everything is easy, and we don't always have an easy path and an easy story, but then you have to look for what those resources are that can help you along your path. And sometimes they're very unconventional. They're not that traditional, you just read a book. But it's like, okay, if this book isn't working out for me, what other book can I get? Can I go on YouTube? What other resources? What other universities? I was familiar, very familiar with the libraries, the library websites of my friends' universities and other schools. I mean, we're talking other schools separate from mine. I knew that libraries, and I could go have them rent books for me, and I would use those books to help myself. My sister was in med school then. I knew her medical school library website, and I would check for books. I knew how to use the catalog system. But when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, and I want you to remember that. So when I was there, University of Texas at Arlington, did my first degree there, finished up, and realized, I really like school. I wanted to stay in school. So I stayed in school and got my PhD. And the bottom left picture there has a picture of me with my amazing PhD advisor. I spent 5 years doing my PhD, graduated. And the thing with doing a PhD is you do a lot of research. You have to make an original contribution to your field. No pressure. It's easy, right? You got to do something no one's done before. So I spent time doing that research, and you have a PhD. People think, oh, you're very smart. But it's not that you're that smart, or it's not that you're not smart at all. But it's that you know how to ask and answer the right questions, right? So because I did all that, spent all that time doing research, when I finished my PhD, I wanted to do more research. And that's how I found myself at NASA Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley, in the Intelligence Systems Division, getting to ask and answer the right questions. So the right picture, the picture on the right, you see kind of those equations on the board. This was for a photo shoot I had to do at work, but this was my board. This is literally my board. This is what my life looks like. Remember I talked about the YDX and working through equations and solving, the hard stuff and finding different ways to come to the same solution. Just blew my mind. So I still get to do that, and I'm very pleased, very happy, very fulfilled to have a career that is interesting like that. But remember, asking and answering the right questions. So what are the kinds of things I've gotten to do? This I got to work on as an undergraduate student, so even as a bachelor, working on a bachelor's degree. This is the Orion spacecraft. It's really cool. It's basically supposed to be, kind of like NASA's replacement for Apollo. That's supposed to take humans back to the moon. We're going back to the moon. We are, right? And so I got to work with multiple teams on this. Even it was like 18, 19, yeah, during that time frame. And one of the cool things I got to do was work with a hatch mechanisms team. The hatches on the spacecraft are pretty much the doors, right? So I designed test fixtures for the hatches, basically like taking the door and making a test fixture for it so that people could build it and use it to do testing that will make sure that those doors could withstand the extreme thermal and vibration environments that they will be subjected to upon entry of the atmosphere, right? Make sure that, because these things are going to house astronauts, right? So to make sure that these things can sustain and withstand the vibration and the thermal environments that they will be subjected to. So really, really cool stuff that I got to do it. This is what I worked on for my PhD. It's basically aircraft formation. Like when you see birds flying long migratory distances, they fly in an extended V formation, right? If you ever get to see that, just kind of think about that. And birds are really smart. Nature is optimal, right? They know that when they fly like that, so it's kind of like an inverted V, the ones behind get to save energy. They get to save energy. They don't need as much energy to fly. They're kind of surfing the vortices from the lead. If you take that same idea and apply it to aircraft, right? So now we're thinking about planes not flying. They don't have to fly as close as birds do, significantly far back. They can meet up, do some of that, and then split again. But what is the benefit? What is saving energy for a plane? It's saving fuel, right? And fuel is money. If you can save fuel, that's a big deal. So there was a lot of interest in this work. I got to do this for my PhD. Got to work at the Air Force Research Lab on this, and this was a really cool simulation that I created to make sure that I see if something goes wrong, and I was putting the aircraft in a region where I expected something to go wrong and figuring out how to control it. What else did I get to do? This one's pretty cool. In graduate school, I got to work on this plane. It's called the F-35C. It's a fighter plane. And I was doing my PhD full time, and then I got the opportunity to work with this team at Lockheed Martin called the Skunkworks team. If you remember the very, very first set of slides that I showed, there was a picture, on the very title page, there's a picture of this plane called the SR-71 Blackbird. It's a spy plane, but the CIA basically contracted this team within this company to build them a spy plane that cannot be shut down. This was years ago, right? So, but that team still exists. And that was the team that I got to work with in grad school, right? Not the people that built the SR-71 Blackbird, of course. Those people are significantly older now. But that team, that heritage team, is the team that I got to work with on this plane. And this plane had already been built, had already been designed, and it's very optimal. Remember I just talked about fuel savings? If you can save fuel, that is a big deal, okay? So we're trying to even optimize it further, right? This feels very optimized. This plane's very optimized. It's clean. There isn't a lot of drag on it. We're like, okay, can we even save more fuel by controlling it in an optimal fashion? And so working with this really brilliant people, the first couple of weeks I was there, I was like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? So what did I do? I went back to the drawing board, making sure that I understood the problem, I knew what was going on. So I started to review the code, right? Review the code, the scripts that had been developed. And remember I talked about answering and asking the right questions. And asking the right questions was something I didn't understand about the code. And I was like, what is this? So I brought it up to someone. I was like, what is this? Why do we do this here? We're basically double counting something. Why do we do it here and then we do it here again? Is this okay? Is this my understanding that, why are we doing this twice? And lo and behold, that was an error. That was a mistake. So bringing that up to the teammate, he was like, yeah, this is a mistake. This shouldn't be here. And after we fixed that, our code started to work. It started to converge, and we were able to have results for our clients just by asking the right questions. If you don't know something, just ask it or try to figure out why it is so, right? No one really was born a genius, or no one's just a genius overnight. Some people just stay with problems longer and try to figure out why things are the way that they are, okay? So this is some of the fun, exciting things that I've gotten to do, even before my time at NASA. And, it's important to share these things because there's no one success story or one driven, I always knew I was going to end up at NASA. I always knew I was going to be an aerospace engineer with a PhD, because people would send me messages and ask, how do you get to where you are? Or how can I be like you? And I didn't have this path very clearly defined in front of me. I want people to know that there are different paths to success. And you don't always have to know, you don't have to have this grand 10-year plan. But whatever it is that you're working on, be good at it, be diligent at it, be thorough, right? Because sometimes it's just focusing on, maybe getting this promotion that'll put you in a better place for 5 years from now versus, in 50 years, I want to be the chairperson of the Nigerian Bar Association section of business law, right? Versus how can I be the best lawyer that I am today? How can I be, right? So here are some opportunities that I want to kind of leave in mind for the lawyers in the room. There will be a lot of conversations on tech and leveraging the tech explosion per the conference theme, but I want to come at this from the angle of an aerospace engineer. So this is a picture of what people might consider a drone, right? It's a drone. I'm not a huge fan of the word drone because it seems negative and kind of like a war fighter of some sort. But I will sometimes say drone or unmanned air vehicle, a UAV. This is a drone, and we may be familiar with this, right? You see those little kind of fan propellers on the top, and what's directly in front of you is it's a camera, right? We may be familiar with drones because they have many applications in TV, film. We've seen people use them to record their beach days at private beach resorts and things like that. But they have also really, really amazing applications that will enable the good of humankind, right? For one, they've been used to figure out and help farmers in parts of Africa understand, Uganda in particular, understand when it's best to water their crops, right? To help with irrigation so that they can increase crop yields, right? They can also be used to map out forest fires or wildfires. Working in the Bay Area, California, you might have heard every year it's wildfire after wildfire, and people are losing homes and vineyards and things are being burnt down. And so sending these firemen who don't even know the boundaries, right, of these fires, can we map out the boundaries of the fire by using UAVs before we send people in there? Another amazing application that I found out was done is in using these drones to map out breeding sites for mosquitoes. This was done in Malawi. And you wouldn't even believe the reason they took this work. I was curious. I was like, why Malawi? We have mosquitoes in Nigeria too. I'm not saying they shouldn't have taken it to Malawi, but my curious mind, like, why Malawi? And then I found out Malawi has favorable drone laws. They already have the laws, right? They have the rules and regulations in place to facilitate and enable that technology development. So tick-tock. Right? Think about it, right? It's not even really about having the answers, but just fostering and creating that environment that enables technology and development thrive, right? Here's another, it's a picture of a helicopter, but I'm using it to represent just something flying in an urban environment. Air taxis are the new wave, right? We're expecting that in the future, you'll have flying cars. And that's what a lot of people are working towards, researchers, countries, trying to enable, develop the regulations, understanding, do the research that will see this being our future of transportation. So what I realized and learned recently is that the United Arab Emirates, I know they were already on it and trying to develop the infrastructure that will enable this. But as of a few years ago, rules and laws were passed that would make it easier for permits to be granted for anyone involved in this ecosystem, for the research, development, and technology, for the design. So not even just, hey, we're going to design this ourselves, but it's more like, if you want to come test the things that you're building around this area, we're going to make it easy for you. Again, facilitating, enabling that research and technology, that development to thrive. What are we doing in that space? Are there low-hanging fruits? Are there things we can do? Even though we're not the ones developing or building these vehicles, can we say, hey, if you want to come do some testing here, we have congested environments, because basically the idea is that you want to be able to take people from one place to another in the air because the ground is too congested. We have congested environments. We know Lagos. We know how that gets, right? Sitting in traffic, can we develop or do something in terms of that ecosystem that will enable some of that research, that technology, that development come to us? And you know what that does for an economy, right? Another example, this one's a big one because it's being discussed now. Mining asteroids and planets for space resources. So in the 60s, 70s, when I don't know who was here then, but there was a space race, right? You know, the US, Russia were talking about who was going to get to the moon first, who was going to go to space first, and all of that. So there were these treaties and laws, right? International space laws developed in the 60s, 70s that basically said anyone can go to space, right? Regardless of the country's socioeconomic status and development, anyone can go. And if you go, you can't put weapons of mass destruction there, right? You can't go and blow things and try to kill or target other countries. You can go and do work and research for the benefit of humankind. Okay, so space is great. A lot of really, really great stuff is done there. I don't want to spend time doing that, but we don't just go to space because it's cool to go to space, right? The solutions that are developed in space, the sequencing of DNA, vaccine research that can be done in reduced gravity conditions. Baby formula, this is one of my favorite ones. The primary nutrient in baby formula was developed by NASA researchers, by researchers working on a NASA contract for astronaut food. That's what we now have in baby formula. So space is not a nebulous, oh, let's just go there and waste money. There's good that really comes out of going to space. But now with the United States privatizing, you know, and encouraging commercial space activity, we just saw Richard Branson, the first person to go to space in his own spacecraft, the first man, right, to build his own spacecraft and take it to space. He did that. But we just saw Richard Branson, the Jeff Bezos of this world, Blue Origin, SpaceX, all of that, commercial companies trying to do some work in space. But now it's a little tricky because if they go to space and they mine asteroids or they land on a planet and they find some resources, they can take it and they can profit off of it. So far, that hasn't been done, right? Everything's been like research and technology driven. So because that's being allowed now, other countries are like, okay, we don't want to be the ones that are getting the short end of the stick here. We want to enable our own commercial companies to do what they can as well. So these discussions are happening now. Literally right now, the United Nations is trying to make sure that these kind of efforts are not benefiting, you know, one country or one nation at the detriment of others. So we want to get in those conversations. We want to be part of those. I say this because, you know, people think about a space race as competition or, you know, working or involving yourself in spaces like people going head to head. It's really not. We do the best work when we can work together. A lot of space-related efforts have been built on international partnerships, a lot of international collaboration, and you see that, right? Some of the work that's done in Nigeria and beyond we work very closely with other countries. I have this picture here of the International Space Station, one of the true testaments of our work as humans in working together. This thing's basically a floating lab that's orbiting the Earth. Right, astronauts live here, they do work here, and this was built by multiple countries coming together, putting these different pieces together and working together for the benefit of everyone. Okay, so there are a lot of opportunities here, and I want to leave you with this quote and basically remind you that opportunity exists. It's there if you're willing to look for it, work for it, but a lot of times we retract from it because it looks like hard work. But we got to do the work. We got to do the work. With honesty, with integrity, and hard work, we can reach for the stars. Thank you so much for having me. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Feel free to connect with me on Twitter, Instagram. There's no time for Q&A, but I would love to connect. So thank you very, very much to the conference committee for having me and to the NBA-SBL. Thanks.